Hey everybody, it's Mitch, and welcome to my next video. Today we have got another Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 video. And today we will be going to the Complete Warrior to take a look at the Cavalier, because today it is a Prestige Class description day. So, let's talk about the Cavalier. Now, what we're going to talk about in this video is we're going to talk about what the Cavalier is. We're going to talk about how to get into the class. Then we're going to talk about what they get and what kind of build you could possibly make with them, and if they're good or not. So yeah, let's get right into that. Now, the Cavalier, it's a very so basically it is a mounted combat class. This class is all about mounted combat. It's really big on charges, on making charges while in mounted combat. It tends to favor the lance, although it's also pretty good with the sword. So yeah, that's basically what this guy is. They are, as they describe themselves, to be your typical knight in shining armor. Although that's not necessarily the case, and even they say that these guys can be kind of jerks too. Although they're not always. Some of them really are knights in shining armor. So let's get into how to get in. So to get into the Cavalier Prestige class, what you're going to need is you're going to need to be lawful. You have to follow a code, like being a knight. Yeah, it's a rigorous process. So yeah. Now you have to have a base attack bonus of +8. So this is very much for a martial build. You're going to want classes that have good base attack bonuses to enter this. The most obvious for this one would be the Paladin. The Fighter and the Knight and the Ranger, not terrible options. Yeah. Let's see. Handle Animal, 4 ranks. Knowledge, Nobility, and Knowledge, Nobility, and Royalty, 4 ranks. Not bad. And Ride, 6 ranks. So you need a few skills, but nothing too crazy. And for feats, you're going to need Spirited Charge, Weapon Focus Lance, Mounted Combat, and Ride by Attack. So like I say, this build really focuses on mounted combats and charges and the lance, although they are pretty good with the sword too. And there's a reason why, and if you do go Ranger, I'd very much recommend the ranged route. The two-handed route is a lot harder to pull off with this, but Ranger's not really the best option for this. Like Ranger, if you went in, you'd have like options of whether you want to do your lance charges or with the bow. That's not the most specialized build. Yeah. Anyways, let's get into what this class actually gets. So first off, it gets a D10 hit dice, which is really good. So then it also has a good base attack bonus. Again, really good. Very typical for a martial type class. Especially a non-barbarian one. Barbarian one would then typically have a little higher hit dice. Let's see. Good fortitude save and will save, but a bad reflex save. That's pretty good, actually. I was actually a little surprised to see that it has a good will save, but that's awesome. And it gets a few extras. So it gets proficiency with armor and weapons, so that's really nice. If the class you enter just happens to not have that, which I don't know why you would do that. Most class, you're going to have that already from most entry classes that are actually good for this. But if you don't have it, then you get it. You get special mount, so that will make it so your knight levels, your Cavalier level stack with your Paladin levels for determining special mount. So that's kind of nice. Now, there's a little bit. The wording's really vague there. On whether or not this counts if you don't have levels of Paladin. The way it's worded to me, I would say that it doesn't exclude the possibility, so that you could, like, even if you don't have levels of Paladin, you'd still get a special mount at 5th level with this. But if you don't have levels of Paladin or don't have a special mount, some DMs might not allow that, so you're going to want to talk to your DM about that one, which is part of why Paladin's one of the better options to go into this. although Fighter's pretty good too, and so is Knight. There's a lot of synergy on both of those. Ranger less so, but it's still not terrible. The favorite class damage can really help with some of this stuff if you're doing that route. So they get mounted weapon bonus. So basically they're going to get bonuses to swords and to lances on their attack rolls, which is pretty nice. Just extra chance to hit. It actually gets those up pretty high. I think it goes up to like a +4. So not bad. They get a ride bonus check. So basically by 20th level, not 20th, by 10th level, they'll have like a +8 to ride, which is pretty good. They're going to be mounted a lot, so getting just a extra +8 confidence bonus to ride on top of, all the ranks they're probably putting in and their ability modifiers. It's definitely nice to get a little bit of a boost. They get courtly knowledge, so they get to add their class level to knowledge, nobility, and royalty and nobility. So an extra +10 by the end of the 10 levels of this. Now for the real kicker for this, and that's Deadly Charge. Basically, this will let them do one step up. So it'll be like triple damage with a sword while mounted and doing a charge, and quadruple damage with the lance. Now they have to declare it ahead of time, and they only have so many of these per day, but they do a lot of damage with them. And that's really nasty. Like you can do some pretty crazy damage, especially seeing as these damage multipliers do stack with power attack, so you can get really, really high damages. They get burst of speed as well. Now burst of speed basically lets them have their mount move twice as fast, and while their mount's moving twice as fast during a charge, so their mount can move up to 4 times the speed. It's normal move speed instead of just twice, so they can go twice as far. They can only do it once per day without penalty to the mount. If they do it more, then the mount has to make a will save. But if you got a mount that can actually make that will save somewhat reliably, then you don't have to worry a ton, and you can just do it endlessly. But you can always roll a 1, so you want to be at least a little careful on that. But yeah, the fact that it's once a day for without penalty is nice, but the fact that you can do it as much as you want with a solid will save that does not increase the more you do it, quite nice. Now you can also do a full mounted attack. So this is definitely not in addition to burst of speed. This is absolutely, it doesn't stack. It's a secondary option. So with this, you can have your mount move just its normal move speed and full attack, which is not something you can typically do. You can typically only do that if your mount moves 5 feet or less. So with this, you can really get a lot of attacks in, and that can be really, really helpful. Now, then at 10th level, they get Unstoppable Charge, which is basically the same as Deadly Charge, except for it kicks the multipliers up another one. So 4 times with sword and 5 times with a lance, which is absolutely insane. That's really all they get, but it's kind of a lot. Oh, and I forgot to mention skills aren't great. It's 2+ int, relatively small skill list. But yeah, that Unstoppable Charge is crazy. 5 times damage with the lance, especially if you throw power attack on that. Like if you power attack for the full 20, and you're using that lance in 2 hands, which you probably should be, you are going to be trading that power attack damage for 2 to 1, and then multiplying it by 5. So we're talking about getting, so if you take away 20, multiply that by 2, that's 40 damage you get to add. And then when you multiply that by 5, that's 200 damage from power attack. These charges are absolutely devastating. Most 20th level characters will be able to survive that, especially other martial builds like them. But they're almost certainly going to be rolling for excessive damage, because if you take more than 50% damage in a single attack, you have to roll a fortitude save or die. And their Unstoppable Charge will force pretty much any character of similar level to have to roll a fortitude save to survive. And even if they make it, they still took a ton of damage and are now going to have to figure out how they're going to survive that, and how they're going to bounce back from that. On top of that, if you find a way to get pounce on this build from your base class, probably that's even more insane, because you can then make a full attack after a charge and get multiple attacks and just absolutely destroy your opponent. Well, now it's a bit of a DM call whether all of those would have the unstoppable charge on them for one use of the deadly charge, but because unstoppable charge just replaces deadly charge and still has the same uses, but basically it would be a DM call whether it does that, because the wording doesn't really consider the possibility of somebody having pounce. But if they do, or even if they don't get the ×5 on all the extra attacks, you're still probably going to be able to, finish the opponent off, since it's probably going to do like 70 to 80% of their health with that first strike. So, cleaning up with the remaining few, even if they don't get that extra damage, probably still something you can do. Yeah, like this is absolutely devastating. And if your DM does allow it on all of them, that's even crazier. Yeah. So yeah, really, really insanely powerful class. And 200 is just the power attack damage, by the way. That's not even considering damage from strength and the enhancement of the lance and all that good stuff. The enhancement of the lance at a +5, we're looking at an extra 25. That's pretty significant. Strength can get you another probably 25 at least, if not like 50 extra damage. So we're talking some pretty crazy damage with that lance. But you can only do it a few times a day, which is a bit of an issue. On top of that, you also have the downside of this class being heavily focused on mounted combat, which in a lot of dungeon crawls, mounted combat's not very good. It's hard to get the line for a charge. You're going to have a hard time getting your mount through doorways, and up and down stairs. There's a lot of problems with that. But if you're in an open field and you don't have too many encounters, like it's just one battle and you can take out the big guy with one charge, in that situation they're really, really good. But they're very situational, and mounted combat does have its issues logistics wise when going through a dungeon crawl, which is pretty common in a lot of campaigns. So just something to be aware of. But overall, it is a really good prestige class. Assuming that you have a campaign that really works with it. You're going to need to keep in mind you are severely limited in how many times you can do that deadly charge. I think it's 4 times a day, which isn't a lot. And the rest of the time, you'll be doing decent damage. Like, you'll still be doing like triple damage with your lance when you charge. And when you crit hit, that actually would go up to like, if you happen to get a crit hit with it, it's ×7 instead of ×5. So the crit's actually not that big of a deal. It does add a fair amount, but like proportionally to what you were doing, not a ton. Although actually it probably would kill if you did get a crit. But yeah, it'd be what, ×3 with a crit without your unstoppable charge or deadly charge, and then what, ×5 with a crit. So basically you're doing crit damage with your unstoppable charge, which isn't bad at all. So yeah, that's basically this class in a nutshell. Go ahead and leave your comments down below. I'm curious what you guys think of this Prestige class. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like. That really helps things out. Maybe subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this, because we are doing one on every class, race, and Prestige class in D&D 3.5. Ring that notification bell because YouTube is terrible about giving out notifications. But anyways, as always, I'm Mitch, and I'll be seeing you